I want to discuss the teams that need to get off to a flying start next year. And I think there's a number of teams that are desperate for a really strong start to the season. We know winning papers over a whole heap of cracks, and that's what a lot of teams will be looking to do next year. So I want you to play a little bit of a game with me this afternoon. I'm going to call it the 6-week sizzle. So there's more teams than ever in desperate need to start the season strongly. And as I said, I think the first 6 weeks is going to be vital. And what leads to the first 6 weeks is a really strong, blemish-free pre-season. And there's a few clubs that need that. So let's do it. And I'd love for you to join in 1300 736 736. Let us rank the teams according to who is under the most pressure to start the season strongly next season. Or to put it another way, who is in dire straits if their season gets off to a slow start. Every early win or loss is going to carry profound implications for the rest of the season. And I've got 6 teams that stand out. And I probably left 4 off. My people say, oh, you left Port Adelaide off. Yeah, I did. I left Port Adelaide off. But yeah, of course they want to start the season strongly. But they're not in the top 6. Coming in at number 6 is the once mighty West Coast Eagles. And no one expects them to be anywhere, I guess, for the next half a decade. They're not going to be at the business end of anything for at least 5 years. But last year, as we know, was an absolute debacle, and the coach needed a miracle to survive, and he got that. The Eagles were uncompetitive. They lost 11 games last season by 50 points or more. The players have been injured, they've been unfit, and they've been complacent. So my watch on them is how they turn up for pre-season. I want to watch Adam Simpson's demeanour and his energy and the way that he's engaging with the media. Thought he lost a bit of that zest last year, and you can understand why. And I want to watch the competitiveness of the team in the first 6 weeks. Because if it's bad, if there's more losses by 50 points or more, unfortunately, there's going to have to be drastic change at the Eagles. So the 6-week sizzle, the Eagles come in at 6. At 5, Bombers fans, I've got you. Now, I love the fact, and I heard Sam and Gary speak about this on breakfast this morning, that the players are finally acting like full-time professional athletes. I got crucified last year when I said, what are these players doing in Ibiza? I think that's how you pronounce it. Ibiza? It's not Ibiza, it's Ibiza. Got pulled up on that too. What are you doing? You're a full-time professional athlete. Your women's team is playing and you're off in Ibiza, carrying on, whilst the club was searching for a coach. And Essendon found the players have got to have a life. Well, now they don't. Now the coach puts a rocket up them and they've decided they're going to invest their money into a training camp in the off-season. Oh, that's a novel idea, isn't it? So anyway, I'm not going to be critical of it. I'm actually super supportive of it. I think it's magnificent. So after that and the trade period that they've had and new recruit Ben Mackay and making him perhaps the AFL's highest paid player and others who have cashed big checks, the Bombers are all in. Now, it's no good recruiting big names and spending big money on off-season fitness camps if you can't parlay that into early wins. So the 6-week sizzle is on at the Bombers. They come in at number 5. You can join in on this. 1300 736 736. Alex, I know you're waiting patiently. I'll get to you very shortly. Number 4, I've got the Cats. My eyes are on you in the first 6 weeks. Where are they at? I don't know. This time last year, I said they're a Monty. I said everyone else was playing for second. I got that wrong. Is it the end? Or is there some fight still left in the old dog? Now, Andrew Mackie did nothing in the trade period. Nothing other than haggle over 4th round draft picks and lose Asava Radagalia. So that says to me that this group thinks there's another crack, and they're having another crack. So the first 6 weeks going to be vital. Last season, the Cats lost their first 3 before getting a couple of easy kills against Hawthorn and West Coast. If that is repeated this season, it's over. It's done. Geelong finally, like we've tried to bury them for years and years and years, that is it. If it's 3 losses to start the season again, it might be time to thank this amazing squad for what they've done and get ready for premiership reunions and then start the list build from scratch. The Dockers come in at 3. Under pressure, out of contract, coach Justin Longmuir was given no favours by his list management department who had a stinker of a trade period. And he couldn't expect, and this is him personally, the club to start negotiations on his deal until at least the halfway point of the season, which is why the 6-week sizzle is firmly on the Dockers. Last season, they went 2-4 in the first 6 weeks, with the only wins coming against the hapless Eagles and Gold Coast. And if that repeats, it is all but over, unfortunately, for Justin. The Western Bulldogs, the Western Bulldogs were one of the most disappointing teams this year, they got to hit the ground running. They've savagely rebuilt the coaching department. And that group, they've got to put their heads together and get to work. They need to come up with a game plan, a defensive game plan that the players and the current coach actually buys into. Because Luke Beveridge hasn't valued defence high enough, and that has cost them. They went all in at the trade table with this playing list, and anything else other than a prelim finals appearance would be a failure for Beveridge and his Dogs, and the heat is rising there. And lastly, of course, we've discussed at length Melbourne. All eyes now firmly on Melbourne, which is not something you would have said, I don't know, even 7 or 8 weeks ago after 3 consecutive final series and a premiership in the last 3 years. But we're all watching them, and they are number one in terms of the team that needs to start really well next season. Despite the denials, something is clearly off at this club. What state will Clayton Oliver turn up in at pre-season? How will the forward setup look? What happens if Max Gawn gets injured? How significant is the loss of Adamuze? When will Joel Smith be allowed back? All these questions will be answered in the first 6 weeks of the season, and no team will be under more pressure than Simon Goodwin's Demons in 2024. That's the 6-week sizzle according to me. Now it's over to you. The rookie list is a farce, honestly. So clubs have, and it comes into vogue, and I've had my say on this in the past, when clubs go to place their final list lodgements, which has happened in the last 24 hours, and then you're hearing and you're reading such and such a player is going to be delisted and then put on the rookie list. And I'm going, hang on. Sam Reid from Sydney is going to be delisted and then put on the rookie list. And I'm going, Sam Reid's 32 years of age in December. He's been on an AFL list for 13 years. This defeats the purpose of what the rookie list should be there for. Jake Melksham, great player, a wonderful footballer for Melbourne. He's injured, going to be delisted and re-rookied. So don't worry about the 21-year-old who's plying his trade. He's been overlooked in the national draft a couple of times, and he's gone back and he's worked on his game at Samford or Waffle or VFL level, and he's craving for an opportunity to be placed on a rookie list. He can't be, because Jake Melksham is on the rookie list. He's 32. He's played 221 games. John Newcomb is what is he? Hawthorn fans, a top 3 player at your club now? Certainly top 5 if you're judging best and fairest results. There's not many in front of John Newcomb, maybe Sicily and Will Day. He's probably their 3rd best player. He's been recontracted since he was picked in the mid-season draft, and that's fine, go on the rookie list. But once he signs a new long-term deal, surely he comes off the rookie list. He's a star of the game. Liam Shields at North Melbourne is a rookie. He's played 271 games. He's 32 years of age. Phil Davis, I can go on and on. I'll bore you though. Phil Davis is 33, and he was a rookie last year for the Giants. The guy's been around forever. Ed Curnow, I can go on and on. Ed Curnow's 34. He's played 221 games. He's got absolutely everything out of himself, and he's a rookie. So this is a joke. When I started, I sound like that old guy now. When I started in 2001, the rookie list was there for exactly that, rookies. Like Dean Brogan was a rookie. Now, he came from a unique background of playing basketball, and he wasn't ready to be an AFL footballer. So then you get the advantage of putting him on the rookie list, and he can work. He couldn't kick a drop punt when he first started. So he goes on the rookie list, works at it, plays reserves football at South Adelaide for a while. Then he plays league footy, and then he comes in and wins a premiership 4 years later. That's what the rookie list is there for. Now, I keep hearing we're going to have 50 draft picks. This is what they're saying. Only 50. Yet, so a lot of clubs are upgrading rookies because they don't want to draft young players. So I just think the game's in an interesting state if we don't have enough young players getting opportunities, and we are not using the rookie list in the way that it should be used. So the AFL are cracking down on a lot of things, which I love under the new regime. I love the fact that they're making just a tad harder on clubs signing players long term. Just a few other hoops they got to jump through. Could be stricter, but it's a nice start. Love the fact that they're cracking down on club injury lists, and that seems like a small thing, but it's important for the transparency of AFL fans and knowing where your best player sits. Is he 4 weeks away? Is he 2 weeks away? Is it a hammy or is it tightness? Not that he's long term, and there's no time frame for his return, which clubs have been taking the mickey with. They're also taking the mickey with rookies. Brisbane had 9 rookies, 9 of them. And a lot of them, Nakia Cockatoo, are players that have been around for ages and have been on other clubs. So I'm urging the AFL to crack down on this. to be an AFL rookie, you should have not been on an AFL list before, and there should be an age limit on it. Now, whether that's 23, whether that's 24, you can have your say and be the judge of that. But that's around the right age. Those players that have been overlooked at the national draft, or those players that have come from a unique background, which we are seeing, and need some time to develop on an AFL list. I'm interested in your thoughts in Don Pike, who's been appointed the West Coast new CEO. He succeeded long-time chief Trevor Nisbet. Now he returns to the club after winning 2 flags. He's played 132 games for them through the 80s and 90s, and more recently he's done everything, really. He's been an assistant coach under John Longmire at the Swans with great success. Was almost revolutionary in the way that he changed their ball movement at the Swans with terrific results, which led them to last year's grand final, of course. He's got a Bachelor of Commerce and has operated several successful businesses in WA. He's also got a 60% win-loss record as a head coach. So he's pretty good across a number of fronts in the game.
I love the way that he coached the Adelaide Crows. They became an attacking juggernaut, didn't they, in 2017, and didn't go the whole way. But and he had a significant influence at the Swans, as you said. But his career pivot now to be a CEO, and he's had a few pivots along the way, is intriguing. This is a good appointment, isn't it, for the Eagles? They need fresh faces. Trevor Nisbet's been there a long time. And as a football club, I think having a new person run the show will give them, I don't know, like a fresh set of eyes, which they desperately need.
And he's saying the right things already. I think the one criticism I had after watching him sort of closely here in Adelaide, he didn't embrace the media aspect of it at all. And he struggled to get his point across through the media. And I don't think he rated media. The Adelaide Footy Club went very insular. They were, I thought, a little bit arrogant at the time, where all the media was directed through their own club websites, and they tried to control the narrative. I don't think they were that transparent with their fans through the media, and that resulted in the camp fiasco and the denials with that, and he was at the forefront of that, of course. But having seen the way Sydney do it and their culture, I think he's going to be much better for having been at Sydney, and already he's saying the right things. And if you're listening, if you're a West Coast player who heard him speak yesterday on Andy and Gazy or the media conference that he's done, there's a pretty, not so subtle message to the players. You want to come back in good shape. And I think the message also needs to extend to Adam Simpson is you cannot be letting these players get away with what you've let them get away with and the way that standards have slipped for the last 3 years. But we can chat a little bit about that after 7 o'clock. Tell us about Orazio.
Orazio Fantasia has signed a deal with Carlton. So he had a 1-year deal on the table with Port, and clearly opportunities were going to be limited there. So he decided to go to the Blues as a delisted free agent. There's a special place in my heart, Kane, for 3 club players, journeymen who've been around the country. He's gone Essendon to Port. And do you remember the battle between Dodoro and Jason Cripps over what Fantasia was worth?
I do.
It was a heated trade discussion as from about 3 years ago. And then this was very easy, really. Carlton had a spot on their list. They want a little bit more flair in the front half. They feel like he can offer something, and they picked him up. Do you think it's a good bit of list management?
He can seriously play. There's little risk associated in doing it because you're not paying him a whole lot. If he doesn't play, he's not going to cost you much. But the upside is high. And Andrew Russell is as good a fitness boss in the league. They'll back him in to get a program together for Orazio where he can play. If he plays 16 games for the year and 3 finals, it's a good get. I think they'll manage that throughout the year.
Isn't just looking at the Carlton list, aren't they just so beautifully ready to go? They want for nothing. They'd like Harry Mackay to kick straight, but they've got everything else in place. Their good players are contracted, and they've picked up just people around them. Elijah Hollands, I don't know how good he's going to be, but he was a top 10 pick 3 years ago. So clearly he can play. And Orazio Fantasia has proven himself at the elite level as well.
It's my way too early premiership prediction, but I've got the Blues winning it next year. It's early. What date is it?
It's November 3.
Yeah, I know, but it's the way too early pre-season premiership prediction. I think the Blues win it next year. You've got some news on the AFL footy department because Jeff Walsh has accepted a part-time role there in Laura Kane's department, but you're telling us that the AFL is still looking for someone full-time.
There is, yeah. So Jeff Walsh, excuse me, morning to you. Jeff Walsh is starting at the AFL as a consultant. He's clearly a very experienced football person. I think Josh Gablich reported this yesterday and Michael Gleeson reported it as well in The Age. So that beefs up Laura Kane's team. but they're still looking for someone else, a GM of football performance. And they've been interviewing for this role for about a month now, maybe even a little bit longer. So they clearly still feel like they need to bring someone else in that can work alongside Josh Marnie and under Laura Kane. And it really is the last piece of the puzzle for Laura Kane, so that they can have the football department that they want. And it's a very new-look football department, isn't it? In fact, it's a new-look AFL senior leadership team with Andrew Dillon as the CEO, Laura Kane as the footy boss, Josh Marnie's come in from Essendon, and Jeff Walsh as a consultant. But there's been lots of change. And I think it's fair to say, Kane, that this year, the change, I guess the delayed change has frustrated clubs. Gil McLachlan hanging around for as long as he did made clubs feel like that it was just like almost like a gap year at the AFL. There was nothing really happening. They were working out how to push forward. But now they can actually push forward, get the team they want. And part of that is speaking to clubs and having good relationships with clubs, because it was felt for a while there that the relationship between AFL HQ and clubs wasn't what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, they went a whole season without a footy boss, so that couldn't have been ideal. Now, Andrew Dillon has said, and I'm reading from the piece that Michael Gleeson has written in The Age this morning, that footy will be front and centre, and that will be, sounds obvious, but these appointments make it feel like that footy is so important in getting that right with a few of the dramas that we've had with the ARC and the rules and how to make the game as safe as it possibly can. What do you think we'll notice as a footy fan? What will the average footy fan notice? I'm assuming the AFL is going to be much more visible and accessible to the fans than what they were last year, where they hardly ever spoke.
Yeah. I think, Laura Kane will clearly be front and centre there. I think what will change is Gil McLachlan's style of leadership was charismatic. He was a figure that was really quite influential from a negotiation perspective at the very high levels of the game. I think Andrew Dillon is probably more detail orientated. I think he probably is more focused. He's still focused on the big issues, but I think he still has a lot of focus on the smaller issues as well. And I think he's maybe not, or he's clearly not quite as charismatic as Gil McLachlan, so maybe he doesn't sell the game the same way, but I think behind the scenes, he has the utmost respect from people who've worked with him. So I think he's the right appointment. I think Laura Kane's a great appointment as well, but she's going to have some tough times ahead. Every year, Kane, stuff bobs up that's really delicate.
Yep.
Really interesting issues that are very hard to deal with. And this year was no different to that. If you look at the Hawthorn racism saga, off the field, then on the field, even the finish to the Sydney-Adelaide game was difficult to deal with. The umpiring issues, the MRO issues. So I think Laura Kane will be front and centre for that.
All right. What clubs are pushing for a change to the interchange bench next year?
Yeah, there's a renewed push from clubs to get rid of the sub next year and have 5 interchange players. So as far as I know, there's not a lot of movement at the AFL on this matter, but that doesn't mean that it won't happen between now and the start of next season. So did you know, Kane, that match payments for the sub last year were not part of the salary cap?
Right.
So now...
do you have the numbers on what sort of a saving that would have been?
Well, you can do the maths. So the average is about $5,000 a match,
okay.
But some players would get paid $2,000 or $3,000 a match, depending on what's in their contract. Some players would get paid more.
And some players wouldn't have match payments as part of their contract. Some players, like Nick Haynes, when he's a sub, he wouldn't be on match payments. He'd just be on.
He'd be on something.
He'd be on a set figure.
Well, he'd be on. They get paid something for a match. It might just be a low. You're going to be none.
There's many good players. Most good players are just on a set contract. Doesn't matter if you play or not.
Yeah. Okay.
So so that would be a factor in that as well. But so they want 5 on the interchange bench, no sub, which makes so much more sense.
It makes so much more sense.
Particularly when you've got a player off getting a concussion assessment, and in that time you can't activate your sub.
Yeah. So the AFLPA has long pushed for the sub to be eradicated completely. No sub. The players don't like it, but the league told the Players Association a while ago that when they introduced the sub, the majority of clubs were for it. That's not the case anymore. As far as I can tell, I haven't spoken to all 18 clubs, clearly, but from a sample size, which is fairly big from the ones I've spoken to over the last few weeks, they don't want the sub. They want 5 interchange players, and that 5th interchange player, their match payment is part of the salary cap, and it's just clear. It's easy. I think the sub was brought in initially because there was a medical sub, and now it's a tactical sub. I mean, the reason that it was eliminated initially about 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Because everyone hated it. Tom,
Everyone hated it.
Can we get rid of? No one likes subs. Subs don't work. Okay, so the only query I would have is, okay, we go to 5, then someone will lose a player early, and that team will say, oh, we were disadvantaged because we lost a player. Then do we go to 6? Do we go to where does this end? So
well, the difference between 5 and 4 is not as significant as 4 and 3 and 3 and 2. So you're right. Where does it end? But I think 5 is a reasonable number. Given you already have a 5th player on the bench there, you may as well let that 5th player play as an interchange player.
Someone will lose 2 players early, and they'll say, "Oh, we went down to 3, and they had 5," and then at some point there'll be a push to extend this. So any more than 5 seems an absolute joke. But can we just now know and be clear that subs don't work? We lived it. The players hated it. The clubs hated it. We saw the drama this year around clubs just naming their team and not naming a sub on Thursday. That was ridiculous.
They hated that.
It was amateurish. It was.
But who do you blame for that?
Well, I don't know. You said it was champion data, then it was the AFL. So the AFL, I blame.
The AFL was asking that the crux of it was that there wasn't another column in the champion data system to name a sub. And in order to create that column, it was going to take a bit of back-end work from the technical people, and the AFL didn't want to pay for it. And Champion Data said, no, we're a business, you've got to pay for this. And it never got done.
So let's just all right, clear it up. We don't need a sub. If you lose a player early, that next player can come on. But I warn the clubs just to not sook if you lose a player early. 5 is enough. It's always been a game of a bit of luck. Often teams have lost players early and you come back and you're fine and you win and your back's against the wall and you love it. So that's where it sits. You can have your say 1300 736 736. Let's work our way through some contract news because you've got some news on Ben King.
Yeah, so Gold Coast are keen to extend King's contract beyond 2024, which is when it finishes, by Christmas. So that's only a couple of months away. And there's a growing confidence that this is very much in play. Ben King's been away, he's been on holiday, but he could extend by 2 years, which would take him to free agency, or he could extend by 4 years, which would take him to unrestricted free agency. I think both options will be available to him, Kane. I think the Suns will say, we'll trigger this extra 2 years and you can stay till the end of 2026, or you can stay for an extra 4, which is unrestricted free agency. And the question I have for you, Kane, is if Gold Coast make King its highest paid player, is there an obligation for him to sign more than a 2-year deal? If they're gonna pay him so much, should he commit longer term, more than 2 years?
He can do what he likes. I think it would be magnificent if he signed a 2-year deal. He's not going to be worth less in 2 years, and for Gold Coast, I think that's okay. I think that's a reasonable time frame, and they may need to work out whether Ben King deserves to be their highest paid player. Like, to me, it feels like it's all in the Ben King camp, and he's got them over an absolute barrel. He kicks 1.7 goals a game and he's done a knee. Like, is he worthy of the deal that they are willing to sign him to? I mean, he could essentially write his own check and a number of years at Gold Coast because they're that desperate to keep him. But how many times have Gold Coast fallen into the trap of overpaying very talented players who are not paid on their performance, they're paid on the potential. And look, Ben has had some good years, and in 2021 he kicked 47 goals. But I mean, that's Aaron Norton numbers. That's not jumping off the page. That's not Tom Hawkins, Jack Revolt, Josh Kennedy type numbers.
No, but you know better than anyone.
So don't overpay him. If you had to lose Ben King, would it be the end of the world for Gold Coast? I don't think it would be. You'd get
a key forward who's entering the prime of his career.
Jed Walter's coming in. He's got some durability issues. He's not the perfect key forward. You're not going to build a team around him like you would Jonathan Brown. Yes, ideally you'd love to keep him, but if you lost Ben King, this is my theory. It's not the end of the world. You'd get a couple, maybe 3 first-round draft picks for him. You've got another couple of youngsters coming in. And who knows whether he is worth $1 million, which is what he is going to command.
You know, Kane, that there is a premium for key position players.
I know there is.
And there's a reason there's a premium for key position players, because they are more rare than midfielders or wingers or flankers.
Yep.
And given his age, given his clear upside. Like you have to agree that his best could be one of the best in the competition. We haven't seen it yet consistently, but if Ben King reaches his potential, he could be a Coleman medalist.
So that his ceiling is a Coleman medalist. You think he could produce a season like Charlie Curnow? That is,
Yeah, I think he
that's
could.
his ceiling.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so given that, and given the Suns and where they're at, and the fact they're actually in to win a flag now, like, it sounds ridiculous because they haven't played finals yet, but they would be looking to win a premiership in the next 2 or 3 years with the list that they've got. Signing Ben King up on good money is surely good business for 2 years or 4 years.
The same would have been said about Harry Mackay. Everyone would have said, "Oh, Harry, he's a Coleman medalist. Whatever he wants." And a year later, that deal looks a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's 7 years.
It looks a little bit ridiculous. But,
Ben King's not signing 7 years.
But we're talking the money and the investment. Ben King could get 7 years if he wanted to. Like if Paul Connors went in and said, "We want 7," they'd sign it tomorrow. So this is just the warning. Be very careful about who you give these huge deals to, and I don't know. Don't be afraid to lose one every now and then. And Gold Coast, how many times
They've lost enough.
How many times have they fallen into the trap of overpaying players on potential rather than performance?
Yeah,
and
I agree.
They've said that they're not going to do that anymore. Now he's the outlier to that. I get it, but I'd be a little bit nervous. So 2 years is great. I'd be rapt if he signed a 2-year contract. All right,